When I started my running journey, I was always out of breath, my calves were screaming, and 4 weeks later I developed knee pain. Fast forward to today and I have no complaints whatsoever, despite my mileage being a lot higher. I'm sharing my personal experience because it highlights the most important training principle if you want to increase your running performance without injury. This is the principle of adaptation, and this video will allow you to grasp a deep understanding, including at the end my 3 Run Smarter adaptation hacks designed to accelerate the adaptation process so you can get quicker gains without injury. It is clear that as you train, your body does an amazing job at adapting to that stimulus. And as a runner, there are adaptations your body can make to help performance. At the start of my own running journey, I needed a better cardiovascular system so I didn't feel out of breath. I also needed stronger calves to handle that push-off phase. And when it came to my injury, I needed my knees to be more resilient to tolerate those ground reaction forces. Now, listen closely. The best way you can get these adaptations is by training within your adaptation sweet spot. This is a training session that is enough stimulus to trigger adaptation, but isn't too much that the body experiences overload and starts breaking down. For example, for most, a 15-minute walk will not reach the threshold to trigger change. However, more commonly, runners will train too fast, run too far, leading to overload and eventually injury. Keep in mind that every tendon, ligament, and bone has certain limitations. Surpass that limitation in training and an injury is just around the corner. But Brody, how do I know where my adaptation zone is? Great question. The truth is we don't really know, and everybody's adaptation zone will be different based on their past fitness history, injury history, and several other factors. But I have 3 tips for you to ensure you're on the right track. Tip number 1 is to start embarrassingly slow and embarrassingly short. This is because runners often underestimate how much load needs to be tolerated while running. With this approach, the only risk is potentially underloading yourself initially. However, once you progress beyond this point, you'll quickly enter that adaptation sweet spot. Which brings me to tip number 2, and is to progress gradually. This is where following a plan works really well. This way, you can execute a gradual progression that makes sense on paper rather than running without guidance and doing too much too soon without realizing it. A general rule of thumb is to increase your volume by 10 to 15% per week. But this can be adjusted based on your unique circumstances. When you train consistently within your adaptation sweet spot, your tolerance to exercise will start to increase. This means you are able to tolerate longer distances successfully, building your resilience in the process. Tip number 3 is a really important one, and it is to listen to your body. Since the boundaries between your adaptation sweet spot and overload are frankly ill-defined, you need to accurately read your body signals and early signs of overload just in case you're overdoing it. These signs and signals can be things like delayed onset muscle soreness, stiffness of the tendons, tightness of your joints such as your hips, knees, and ankles, and a lack of fluent motion in your normal sort of running stride. If mild signs are caught early enough, all you might require is 2 to 3 days of recovery before resuming your program. Learn to read the signals and act accordingly. Now, into my 3 Run Smarter adaptation hacks to help accelerate the adaptation process so you can develop into a better runner. Adaptation hack number 1 is to increase your running frequency. Running frequency refers to the amount of times per week you are running. Typically, a beginner runner will run 2 to 3 times a week and gradually build up the distance. However, the safer and more efficient way is to run the same weekly mileage, but spread it across 4 to 5 days per week. With this implemented, it means you are entering the adaptation sweet spot more often in the week, and adaptation can accelerate. But if you're going to try this out, keep in mind that we're still following the rule of listening to your body. Adaptation hack number 2 is to avoid too many variables. As mentioned earlier, it is hard to determine your adaptation sweet spot. It is even harder when the variables such as running surface, speed, and hills are constantly changing. Variety can be good for enjoyment, but if done too often in the early days, the body's going to struggle to identify how to adapt. It's like you're sending confusing messages to your body and it's saying, wait, Do you want me to be a sprinter or a mountain climber or a long distance athlete? Make up your mind. So find a consistent foundation first, which is typically a slow, steady run before introducing variety into your workouts. Before we reveal the final adaptation hack, I'd love to read your comments on which tip resonated with you the most. Comment below, and on top of that, I'd love to read and answer any questions you have on this adaptation topic. Okay, my final adaptation hack revolves around the biggest running mistake that I see, which is how fast you should run during your workout. It is a bit more complicated than the others, so I've created a whole other video around this mistake, so go check that out.